Hello, it is 3/29/2012, 8:31 p.m. on a nice warm Thursday evening in the Hollywood Hills, California. This is the first of hopefully many installments of Truth Conquers All, where we have weekly reports on topics that you may not have heard much about and may not be getting the attention they deserve by a mainstream media that is owned and operated by a corrupt group of elite individuals that would like to see you scratching your heads, confused and miserable, while they carry out the final stages of a plan that is well on its way to giving them complete control of your life and seriously hindering the future of humanity. These are tremulous times, whether you've chosen to ignore it or not, and I'm not judging if you have. Myself, I got deeply intrigued years ago. I was only a teenager at the time, and the internet was not what it is today. It wasn't until a couple of years ago, in 2009, that I came across a video condemning how the privately owned Federal Reserve gave away $9 trillion of American taxpayer money to offshore international banks. That made no sense to me, and I had to make sense of it. That's what got me started. And the rabbit hole that I went down is so deep, I will never be the same. The world I knew for over a quarter century was not real. Too bad, I know, tough shit. But strangely enough, things are starting to make more sense now, at least. Even more than before, strangely, and sometimes sadly. There is a power out there that is controlling and manipulating the news, our entertainment, politics, the economy. No civilization anywhere is unaffected and unharmed by these people. They are a cloud over humanity, manipulating everything and everyone for their goal of complete control and power. They already have half the world's wealth, but they want it all. And they don't want to have to look at you once they have it. Now, even though there's a lot to handle, I'm still glad I know, because things do make more sense now. And also, I'm sure we can all relate to these monsters in some way, some small way. I see a lot going on today that makes me upset with humanity. But these guys are no saints, and they're not on some mission from God. And if the world was left to them tomorrow, just for them, it would be a horrible place. I mean, hell on earth for anybody but them. Think of how far they've come. Think of how long they've been, generation after generation, stealing and lying and cheating and killing to just get what they want. These are not the good guys, not by a long shot. Little by little, I'll show you they're more sick and twisted than any villain in any movie you've ever seen. Maybe they're more like a villain in a horror movie like Saw, but not really. Not really even close. I mean, if you have a problem with the way things are today, big or small, from the way your children act, to your headache, to your concern over paying your bills, to the sadness you feel over losing a loved one to cancer, to your frustration with TV and the media, I swear, and I'm not even kidding, I can trace it back in some way to this group. As I've said before, I have no intention of being a martyr, and my gut tells me to quit. We no longer live in a free society or have freedom of speech, but these guys are very influential when it comes to peace in our world. My gut will also not let me keep quiet. There are people in charge that have gotten there through murder, lies, theft, and corruption. It is affecting my day-to-day now, and soon, whether you care to investigate it or not, it will be right at your front door also. They are so powerful that the only way to beat them is to expose them, expose the truth. Even with the National Defense Authorization Act in force, even with the Federal Restricted Ground Improvement Act in force, even with the National Defense Resource Preparedness Executive Order, even with Obama's Truth Team. If you don't know what these are, you should. They are horrible. And for the most part, take what these damn things seem to mean with their sleazy, hooky little catch names and reverse it. Like the Patriot Act, for example. In actuality, it's to repeal the Fourth Amendment Act. There's no place for this corruption anymore. Things are getting very bad, very fast. It is time to expose the lies while we still can, before they write their history books and the truth is buried forever. Before the peaceful awakening that I feel is surfacing for humanity is postponed, perhaps again, for many, many years. I'll start this off with a topic that has gotten practically no publicity, and everyone I've ever talked to about it has never heard of it. And there are, in my opinion, greater threats out there, but I've always found this particular project very interesting and could see how it could very well soon be a very opportunistic time for its unique talents to be implemented. The topic I speak of is HAARP, the High Frequency Aurora Borealis Research Project. It is a 35-acre field located in Alaska that consists of 185 antennas that work together as one. It is used to heat the ionosphere, the upper part of the atmosphere, and bounce controlled and manipulated radio waves to Earth or to outer space. It has the ability to destroy satellites, shut down governments, change the weather patterns, cause hurricanes, floods, droughts, tsunamis, earthquakes. The founder of HAARP, Bernard Eastland, was very proud of his invention and wanted it to be used for good. He created it in 1983 with the intention of it finding underground oil deposits and giving the world the ability to prevent floods and droughts. The military has since then, of course, taken this technology over, buying all his plans in the early 90s and setting up HAARP-like stations all over the world for a different purpose, for defense purposes. It just so happens that the way we are defending ourselves these days could be looked at, if you happen to be one of the lucky ones to be defended from, as quite on the offensive. The term preemptive war is being thrown around a lot lately. Hitler also used that term here and there, as well as many other dictators in the past. War is peace, the humanitarian cover. Anything to get your people to patriotically die for you. Anything to make them think they are doing something for their country, their family, and the ones they love, when really they are, and almost always have been, doing it for elite few. A very tricky, filthy elite few. Now, I say this is a very opportunistic time for the government to start using HAARP's more sinister, secret, and destructive abilities because of a few reasons. 2012 is approaching, and if something doesn't happen naturally on December 21st, 2012, like the Mayans have predicted, this would be a great excuse and cover for a natural disaster to occur and rein in an indefinite martial law. Also, this is an opportunistic time because of the laws that have been put into place recently, which I will get into in a moment. The upcoming dollar crash is a good opportunity to have fuel for the fire. The civil unrest that is everywhere in the world, in the U.S. right now, makes it a good time to cause a disaster and really bring things to a state of anarchy. And by the way, they have been planning this. They are prepared for this unrest. This is the party they have been waiting generation after generation for in their families, and they are very well prepared. And I would imagine excited to be fortunate enough to be the lucky generation alive at the pinnacle of this seriously diabolical but in their eyes righteously justified plan to gain control of humanity and exterminate the ones they deem undesirable. And of course, I'll say this from time to time, I know what I sound like. This is just the first episode. Little by little, you'll understand. And I think you'll find that you gain some strength through your knowledge and the truth instead of just being scared and feeling you have no control. Exposing this, that's your control. Knowing about it, that's your control. Being able to make better decisions and knowing that you know the truth, or at least that you know more than you did, that's empowering. I swear it is. Anyways, back on topic. The new laws that make this an opportune time to manipulate the weather and create disasters starts off with the granddaddy of the Constitution and its Bill of Rights busters, the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which was signed into the United States law on December 31st, 2011, right around the stroke of midnight, a little New Year's present from our president. He did this because he knew it was very controversial, and he didn't want too much attention to be caused by it, so the celebration of a new year was a great curtain to hide behind. The NDAA authorized $662 billion in funding, among other things, for quote-unquote the defense of the United States and its interests abroad. As if the trillions we were already spending wasn't enough. Our government and military have more than doubled in size since 9/11. I mean, the facts speak for themselves. We don't need a conspiracy theory. The official story they're giving us is seriously far-fetched enough. And like we need more interests abroad. Like we don't have plenty of oil right here. I mean, we could have had 1 million barrels of oil coming down to us from Alaska through the Keystone Pipeline. Not to mention the U.S. jobs it would have created. And you said no to it last week. I've heard numerous accounts as to why, none of them good. And none of them representing a man who cares about his country's interest first. His actions so often point towards alliances outside of the U.S. and an agenda to end our dollar and bring in a global currency where there is no constitution and no freedom. It would be funny if he weren't getting away with it so badly. I mean, for what reason would we do this other than oil? We are not helping over there. And during the next 50 years that we could easily be living off this oil, gradually and peacefully move into and develop technology for alternative energy sources. That is if you wanted the United States to grow and prosper, which I do not believe he or the group that he answers to wants. That $662 billion is just a drop in the bucket for them, and it is in their intention to bankrupt this country and all other countries and have us in massive debt to them. So they bring in their own currency and their own government. It is their plan. Again, and I'll say this often, they create the problem to give their solution. That is what they do. This is who they are. Okay, I'll finish with the NDAA now, promise. Which basically states that the government can secretly arrest American citizens and disappear us anytime they want to. While George W. Bush only took away our Fourth Amendment rights via the U.S. Patriot Act, the Obama administration has extended the U.S. Patriot Act, even though he said he wouldn't, and now repealed your 5th, 6th, 14th, many amendments through the NDAA. And you can also say goodbye to the Posse Comitatus Act, which makes it illegal for the military to stroll around the streets of suburbia and arrest people at will. Another astonishing trend that a quote-unquote natural disaster could easily bring to greater force has been taking place lately, and it is the blatant outright publicity of the United States government killing United States citizens with predator drones. A show for a future date, indeed, but let me just say, through the FAA Reauthorization Act that Obama signed, the FAA is now allowed to use drones in U.S. skies, and they intend to have 30,000 in U.S. skies by the year 2020. Now, the last law put into place to make this an opportune time to manipulate the weather and create disasters is the National Defense Resource Preparedness Executive Order Obama signed a couple of weeks ago. It basically states that peacetime martial law has been implemented, and they will enforce this with Homeland Security and a newly appointed FEMA Corps, basically a domestic security force that is just as big and just as strong as the U.S. Army, and a clergy of response teams to quell public unrest if martial law is ever declared. And this is now a martial law that doesn't have to mean wartime. It can mean just an economic breakdown, one that they are in the process of implementing, and should have come to pass with the fall of the dollar in about a year. I will be doing a whole another show on that soon. Now, a quirkier and somehow funnier and more out there, I admit, aspect of HAARP is its ability to operate at the same frequency as the human brain. Through this, they can easily subdue and influence great populations through emotional state changes. They can numb them or energize them practically with a flick of a switch. There are accounts from people in Gakona, Alaska, where HAARP is located. Many of the residents say they are very uncomfortable with the secrecy behind it. They don't believe it is being used to study the aurora borealis, and have actually talked to scientists at the local bars up there that are staying there for months on end, who claim to be experts in the field. That's all I'll say about that. One even quirkier sounding aspect of HAARP is that it can be used as a sort of quote-unquote death ray, an actual invention created by the mind of Nikola Tesla, who also invented the AC current that runs all of our households today. He had a concept on the death ray that was presented to the government just before World War II, and those papers are cited in Bernard Eastman's, the inventor of HAARP's technologies, patents. In a way, this is the death ray, just bigger than you would imagine. It can manipulate the weather, knock planes out of the sky, knock out satellites with plausible deniability, wage war without a war even being waged. Where you already have something unstable, you can easily trigger an earthquake. It is not too far-fetched that they were testing technology like HAARP's, and these incidents were collateral damage. There is a treaty that was signed in 1977 with the US, Soviets, and 60 other countries, saying that we wouldn't use environmental manipulation in warfare. Things like creating tidal waves, earthquakes, weather modifications as weapons. So this technology is real, and is known to be effective. So with disasters like the ones that occurred in New Orleans, Haiti, Mexico City recently, Fukushima recently, happening more and more often, you can blame nature, or you can look towards another possibility. Facilities like HAARP, and yes, there are more. HAARP is unique to most existing facilities due to a combination of a research tool which provides electronic beam steering, wide frequency coverage, and high effective radiated power co-located with a diverse suite of scientific observational instruments. Anyways, in conclusion, the moral of the story is, the government cannot be trusted. It is an entity, and like any entity, if it does not grow, it dies. However, this entity takes and feeds off its host like a cancer until its host is dead and the cancer with it. This is their plan, so they can come in with their government once ours is dead. A place where the banks are in charge and the citizens have no rights. You're not on these guys' team, and I'll say this from time to time. You are an American, just another farm where they own cattle. Cattle that is loyal to them and will patriotically fight for them so they can acquire all the other farms and own all the cattle and do with them as they see fit. And as I said, they do not like you. They don't want to look at you. And they would rather just not have you here altogether. HAARP was meant to be something to help humanity, help the planet and its inhabitants. Its technology could have either been public and in the citizens' hands and help, or it could be what it is now, a secret in the hands of the government and possibly being used to kill. This is what the government does with technology. It keeps it for itself to get bigger and stronger. And only exposing the truth can conquer such a damn out-of-control virus such as the United States government today, with their alliances and loyalties to offshore bankers, the Federal Reserve, the UN, and those blasted Illuminati families. Till next time, Vincit Omnia Veritas. Good night.